Hello everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Vince.
Hi Vince.
Hi Cap.
Hey, today we've got a question, and our question is from 54 Everglorious, who asks this: do the MPAA ratings need to be reevaluated? I think this is a very relevant question for obvious reasons. Well, say no more. I mean, how often do we see PG anymore? Is PG-13 still used the same as it always has been, or should it be changed? I think there's a lot to talk about on this. Thanks, guys. Thank you. This is a great topic. This is a really great topic, and I think he's absolutely right. There are not as many PG movies anymore. I think there are not nearly as many G movies as we used to have, and now it seems like, for the most part, by and large, it's PG-13 versus R. Most of what you see, it's going to be PG-13 or it's going to be R. And PG-13 is considered more family-friendly now. There was a time where it was like, if it's, where I know in the 90s when, a lot of parents would be like, yeah, if it's PG-13, my kid can't see it yet. And so many things come out that kids want to see, but they couldn't otherwise. I bet parents are more lax about it now. What do you think?
I think that the guidelines are just so lackadaisical anyway. That's
a good word. Well done.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't feel like there are rigid guidelines for them. I feel like they have something that they can go by. But generally, you have a group of people. You have a committee that watches a movie and grades it based on how they feel more than some kind of quantifiable measurement of things that are inappropriate.
Well, that's partially true, I think, but I also think that that a lot of the guidelines are kind of outdated, or just kind of unfair. I mean, I watched a documentary a few years back about this, and there were a lot of weird things that were like R versus X rated, where there would be in our movie that clearly should have been rated R, that they made X rated because there was like one little weird thing, and most of it's kind of like sexual content stuff. Like there are the reason I bring it up is because there are very clear, rigid rules about R versus X rated and things like that, where with sex scenes, for instance, you can only be in the missionary position and stuff like that. And if there's anything even remotely strange, then they'll make it X rated, even though it's like a very short scene or one scene. There's not much there. The rest of the movie's not like that.
Like that Hilary Swank movie that came out a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Big Girls Don't Cry.
I think that was it. Right.
Something like that. I forget.
And of course, that'll just kill you because a lot of theaters won't even carry it and things like that. But when you're talking about PG-13 versus R, I do agree with you. I think it's somewhat arbitrary, somewhat. And also at the same time, I think there are a lot of things that come out now that are PG-13 that when we were kids would have been rated R.
Yeah, fair enough. There are things that. What's interesting is you go back and you look at movies that get ratings after the fact, what was it? Oh, I'm just thinking about movies that came out.
You mean like before we had MPAA? Yeah.
When during the production code that get rated, or things that were in that little gray area where it was the ratings code, and they're like switching things around and trying to figure it out. So I think it's interesting when you go back and you see a movie that came out in 1968 and it says R. I'm like, that's going to be an easy R. That's definitely not hard. You're gonna watch In Cold Blood and think, man, that movie had some harsh stuff in it for 1968.
Right.
And then you're going to watch a movie that came out today that's R, and you're like, wow, that had some hard stuff in that.
So I'm of two minds about this. I have a difficult time telling if the issue is that the ratings need to be changed, or if we just aren't making as many family films. I'm not sure.
I feel like what we're doing is we're inserting some stuff that's maybe a little more mature into some family-oriented films.
I think you're right.
I
wish there wasn't... Me personally, I wish there wasn't as much of that going on. It's not a censorship thing. I just want to see more movies that you don't have to be worried to let your kids see. You know what I mean? Like don't have that raunchy stuff in the Transformers movies. I know that's kind of the go-to... But you know what I mean? Like you go to the first Transformers movie, and there's a couple things in there where, like the guy... This is not a curse word, so I can say this on Geekvolution, though I don't very often, but the guy's parents mention masturbation. I don't need that in in a movie that's based on action figures. That's weird. You know what I mean? And then you get to the sequel, and they took the little bit of raunchiness that was there, and then they just like blew it up by about $1 billion. And I was like, kids are going to see this. These are marketed really hard toward kids, but because they can get it into that PG-13 rating, it's okay that it's there. So I feel like we're not rating we are rating movies, but what I mean is, I think that we have people making movies for a rating now. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that a lot when we were talking about the DC direct-to-video movies back in the, not back in the day, a couple years ago.
With that,
back in the day when back before we got old. I don't know what I'm talking about.
It's that documentary that we watched. I mean, I think we watched it separately from each other, which is interesting. But
no. Every time one of us brings up a movie the other one has seen, we should just for thereon in the video pretend like we sat down and watched it together in preparation for the review. It will give us more credibility.
Indeed.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But that Hilary Swank movie, they made that movie, got an X rating, and then started clipping things out based on what the committee said was a little too harsh.
Right.
And so they started clipping things out so that they could get to an R rating. And so things are literally made for ratings. Like, they will change it. They will alter something that was made for an artistic purpose. And then, of course, they will also make movies shooting for the rating that they want. Like
shooting up for it.
Yeah.
Well, we could make a PG-13 movie out of this, but we want it to be R because we want to make sure that people know what kind of movie it is.
Right. We want this movie to be super this way, so we're going to insert a couple of dialogue lines that are kind of dumb and don't need to be there.
You and I could both think of properties even just within the superhero realm, right? Where we have heard people, and maybe we have even said ourselves, that this would need to be an R thing. Like you don't want a PG-13 Deadpool movie, that needs to be an R film. You don't want a PG-13 Punisher movie, that needs to be an R-rated film. Things like that. So I'm just saying that I think that we are, as a culture, trained to think in ratings.
Yeah, an R-rated. There needs to be an R-rated Watchmen movie. I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either, man.
Sarcasm is very firmly in place in my statement.
Watchmen's a great point, though, or a great thing to bring up, because there was a lot of talk about that. I mean, because it's a superhero property, of course, the first thing that you're going to Kick-Ass was back and forth too, and yet it went the other way. No, it didn't. It is R. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot, because they had a Red Band trailer. It is R, and needed to be. But with
Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, like with something like Watchmen, you have the same sort of thing where, because it's superheroes, the studio is going to be thinking about stuff like that. Well, do we really want people in capes and something we can't sell to children? And then if you're going to do it right, you have to not sell it to children. And then you remember we talked about this a lot when it came out. Children still went. Parents still brought them because they weren't paying attention to the advertising, which some people thought made it look a little bit too okay for children,
which helpful
maybe
hint.
It did, but yeah.
If you're a parent figuring out whether or not you want to take a kid to see a movie,
maybe you look at the rating first. Yeah.
Watch the trailer. Look at it first. Don't just arbitrarily decide my kid wants to see Freddy versus Jason. Surely that's about a teddy bear fighting a jack-in-the-box.
Well, we've talked about this with video games too.
It's just ridiculous. Look it up.
Because you've done some retail where you've had people come in and try to buy video games for their grandkids that you're like, I don't think you want to do that.
What's Lollipop Chainsaw? Well, look at the barely clothed woman on the front, the severed head, and the chainsaw covered in blood. Do you want to buy that for your 12-year-old kid? I don't know. And the 12-year-old kid is like, yes, please buy it for me.
It's like, but can you imagine this exchange? The grandmother's like, but he's very mature for his age.
They've said that to me before. This is very true. He's very mature for his age. Cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't care. I would like to think.
No, I got you. I wouldn't do it, but
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't buy that for my kid. I mean, if he were 17, I'd be like, whatever. But for a 9-year-old kid, I want to play Lollipop Chainsaw, or I want to play the one where I shoot the guy in the head. I'd say, no. Oh, sorry, buddy.
What were we talking about?
MPAA ratings.
Yeah. So I don't know. Does the the real crux of the question, what do we need? What needs to be done?
I feel like, and this is potentially hazardous, I feel like we need a better written sense of what would differentiate movies.
We need to update it. I think that we're working on a rule set from decades ago.
Fair enough. I just feel like part of it is a degeneration of culture, which I kind of hesitate to say because that's very judgmental. But I feel like we have
to a degree, yeah.
We have a lowered sense of what is inappropriate to.
I agree with you.
And
Yeah,
I'm not going to say that that's necessarily bad, because sometimes I feel like we should relax what we consider to be inappropriate.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
not with everything.
Like, I feel like sometimes what they do is they watch something and then judge it based on what they think it's supposed to be, rather than what it is. And they say, well, this is inappropriate for its target audience, and this is inappropriate for its target audience.
The problem is that's how the rules are written. I mean, the rules aren't written of like what the overall idea is or whatever. It's if it's got this in it, it gets a check mark. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. They're like, well, since it's about superheroes, they can't have this, this, and this. Well, it's stupid, because it's not marketed toward.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
it's not marketed toward kids.
That's not a rating thing. That's more of a studio putting the thing out thing, trying to make it for a certain rating. But I'm just saying that like with the actual ratings that get made. I mean, it's a laundry list. It's a checklist. It's these are the things that are on screen that you can't have if you want it rated this certain thing, which makes a certain degree of sense. It's just that that you've got to kind of decide. And I just feel like this is a taste thing, or this is just kind of a your own personal opinion thing. Like what is appropriate for a 13-year-old? What is appropriate for 17, 18, looking at rated R, that sort of thing. I just did the I just reviewed again the Spawn movie for Spawn Year, and I think it's really interesting that the director's cut for that was rated R. They got a PG-13 movie because they actually wanted to try to market it to families, which I still think is kind of hilarious. And they but for the diehard fans, they wanted to make sure they had an R version, so they put an R version out, and that's the only thing that's available now is that R version.
Really?
If you watched it now, yeah, if you get the DVD, it's the R version. The thing is, it's not a rated R movie. I mean, you watch it and it looks like a PG-13 film, and I wonder how it got rated R. I don't know. Like there's even a lot less swearing than you would expect to see in that movie, and there's like the violence. I mean, I've seen like from the same period, like the same time, much more violent things rated PG-13 even than what I saw in that movie, and so it does seem a little bit arbitrary.
Oh. I don't know.
Even though it's not supposed to be.
I had a thought.
Yeah.
But it flew away because I was intently listening to what you were saying.
Oh, no,
I was like, oh yeah, do tell.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that. Thanks very much. I like it when I can be engaging enough that you forget what you were going to say. But I don't like the part where you forgot what you were going to say, because that's about all I have. Is just kind of, I don't really know what you should do with the rating system. I guess for me, I'm less concerned about that and more concerned about if everything's being rated PG-13 and R, do we have enough family-friendly films? Do we have enough things that kids can watch? And if we don't, and parents feel like they're leaving their kids out by not letting their kids see movies, then are their kids being shown things that are maybe not appropriate enough for their age, but parents feel like they don't have a choice. I do feel like that we've got that going on sometimes, and I mean, like, being a parent myself, as my kid gets older, I'm not going to want to have to shelter him too hard. There are a lot of things I love that I know it's going to be a little while before he's going to be able to watch, but, I want to make sure that there is enough stuff that we both can watch together that he doesn't feel too left out on, you know what I mean?
I feel like there's always been kind of an arbitrary setting of what is and is not appropriate. And
well, case-by-case basis is what I say. I mean, it just depends on what the maturity level of the particular kid.
I watched some movie a number of years ago that was a PG movie. It was not PG-13. It was not R. It was a PG movie with nude scenes in it. And I thought,
interesting.
What? What? How do we decide that that's PG, but then look at another movie that has a sex scene in it and it's suddenly R?
Well, what country was it made?
I'm pretty sure it was American.
Really?
Yeah.
That's bizarre because
it was bizarre.
we're like.
Like, did they just let it get by them?
We are really afraid of nudity in this country. A lot of people
it's
feel
like the opposite of England.
A lot of people feel like it's very backwards that we would be so okay with violence, but so afraid of, nudity, and fair enough, it does seem a bit backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah, like, it's okay to blow somebody's head off, but I'm not going to go for that other joke. I'm going to move on.
But I mean, I wouldn't feel so weird about it if we had both, necessarily. If it was like, well, you can't show a guy's head getting blown off and you can't show private parts. Okay. But it's just bizarre that we're so much more worried about one thing than another.
I feel like part of the problem is we become lax on one, and then we think, well, that's too... Or like if we're going to go to that extreme, why does this one even matter? So we become a little bit lax on that, and this other one rises up. So we look at violence, and we go, well, we can allow a little more violence on TV. And then suddenly we're like, well, why not just a little more sex appeal? Why not? And then you get that one up, and then we're like, well, why can't we just lift this up a little bit? And then it's just kind of a snowball effect. Not to say that that's good or bad, I'm just saying that it's a potential.
My personal opinion is that one of these things is worse than the other. And I've always kind of felt that way. And that's not saying that I'm like, obviously, the stuff I watch. It's not like I'm super anti-violence in film or whatever. But I mean, like for things marketed toward children. You know what I mean? And this is one of those things we've talked about a lot with superheroes, where I have a really tough time with it. I hate that that I'm so on the fence about how old my kid would have to be before I let him watch certain superhero films at this point. And one of the things I've talked about a few times is X-Men First Class, where I'm like, for the most part, your average kid could watch that movie, except that Wolverine's got an F-bomb, and there's a scene with a coin that we watch go directly from one end of one guy's head all the way out the other side, and then immediately I'm like, well, that ups it a couple years, you know what I mean? And then I even felt this way with Daredevil when it first came out, with the Psi in the hand. I've mentioned this before, but that's kind of my go-to kind of thing. And then other things like Watchmen, again, reading and watching it. Like Watchmen is such a... Who reads the Readman? Watchmen is such a thought-provoking movie or story to me that I kind of hate how long I'd have to wait for my kid to look at that. This is neither here nor there, but I think about these sorts of things where it's like, I've got like pictures of these things up in my house, but then it's going to be years before my kid ever gets to see them. And I think about stuff like that. It's kind of weird. I wouldn't let my kid watch, say, The Matrix until he was a certain age and things like that. And so it's just kind of...
maybe part of the problem is that the studios are trying to appeal to as many audiences as they can, and they know that kids don't necessarily mind things being inappropriate for them, because that's kind of shocking and they want to see it, because it's kind of that exotic other. They want to see what's going on.
Oh yeah, kids are always that way.
So they say, well, we'll make this movie that's marketable towards children, and then we'll insert this stuff for the teenagers, and we'll insert this stuff for the adults, and then we'll insert this stuff for the dogs, and we'll insert this stuff for your mom.
That's right.
And that makes a movie more of an assembly line picture than it is anything else. And, I feel like that's how you get a PG-13.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, that's what Transformers is. I mean, they think it makes it accessible, but the problem is what you're doing is basically just making a mosh pit of stuff where, okay, people aren't going to like this, and this, but if we have this thing in there for them, they'll like it. Movies don't work that way. Fiction doesn't work that way. You're making a product, but you're telling a story. This is where I go story guy again. But it's it's how I feel about it. I think it's bizarre. It's for instance, if you are a person that really likes... Okay, I guess I'm going to talk about something that you don't really like. Neither of us really like. If you're a person that really, really likes racing and race cars, that doesn't mean you're going to like Fast and the Furious just because you like watching cars go fast.
Which you'd be surprised, but...
But it doesn't mean necessarily you will. You know what I mean? If you're the kind of person that goes to a movie to actually watch a story unfold, you might be the biggest wrestling fan in the world, but just because it had Hulk Hogan in it didn't make it a good movie. You see what I'm saying? So these kind of superficial physical elements are not what make people like movies. It might be what gets them there in the first place. That certainly happens. Anyway,
What do you mean Suburban Commando's not a great movie?
No, it is. It's great. No, anyway, this is completely off topic now, but definitely related. Anyway, I think I'm done. Did you have any final thoughts?
I think the main thing that I wanted to hit on here just before we ended was maybe to make it a little more explicit. is that
no. We have a firm PG rating here on Geekvolution, so please don't get explicit. Sorry.
To make the
Fire
idea more
truck.
explicit. Fire truck. I saw there was something on Facebook that my fiance just went by real quick, and it said, "Can you think of a word that begins with F and ends with K?" And I said, "Fire truck," and she said, "You're cute."
He's like, "No, I came up with that years ago."
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm aware, but this idea that we want to make more explicit is that maybe that's where all the PG stuff went. Maybe it's because of this. Maybe it's because of this.
Keep your shirt on,
line.
Vince. Oh, sorry.
Maybe it's because of this assembly line movie making.
You are really white skinned, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm telling you.
I don't know, man. You need to get a tan or something. You look
All
like,
loose and
you look
stuff.
like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
But maybe that's what happened to the PG movies, is that they have this assembly line movie making, and they're trying to appeal to teenagers and young adults, and by putting in some of those more mature things into storylines.
Get them to go in the
children.
first place. Say, well, it's kind of for them already, but if they feel like it's it's going to be considered kind of wrong of them to go, they'll be more interested in going. If it feels, I'm doing something taboo,
Yeah. So PG movies, there are PG movies out there. They just have PG-13 elements shoved into them. And then, of course, there's movies that rightfully deserve to be PG-13 because they're designed and theme to be that way. And then there's movies that rightfully deserve to be R-rated movies because they're designed to be that way. But, of course, you might have a PG-13 movie with an explicit sex scene shoved in the middle.
That's hard to say, yeah.
For a sex scene shoved in the middle for no apparent reason other than to just get butts in the seats.
I'm with you. Although, weirdly enough, that doesn't happen as much as it used to. We seem to be getting away from the random sex scenes, at least in anything but horror films.
Or Daredevil.
But well, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean,
fair
like
enough.
now, yeah.
I just wanted to say that.
Sure. No, you're right. But that was the movie I was thinking of, and then I was like, we don't see that as much as we used to. I think that what this that one of the that kind of the direction this question is going is should we like take the MPAA ratings and just make them looser, like just kind of move everything down, so like what used to be R is now PG-13 and what used to be PG-13 is now PG, like is that the answer? Do we just kind of take the whole thing and move it down? And again, I don't really care that much what exactly the ratings are. I just want more stuff that's okay for my kid to see. That's all I'm worried about.
Fair enough.
That's all I'm worried about, And again, different people are going to have different priorities. I wouldn't have been thinking about this as hard 3 years ago before I was a dad, but now I'm a dad and I think about those sorts of things. So,
yeah, I feel like PG movies can be good and ought to exist as opposed to PG-13 movies.
Sure.
Because personally, I kind of get tired of these randomly inserted adult themes into things.
Me too.
Like,
where
silly.
It doesn't
matter.
fit there, and it's not intrinsic to the property.
Yeah, it does not feel organic.
Imagine we're going to be doing a commentary on this soon. We haven't done it yet, but imagine the PG-13 Field of Dreams. What's the point? Like, why?
Yeah, like you could have a movie that adults would appreciate and make it G-rated. You know why?
You could.
Because it doesn't have to have themes that are understandable by children. It just has to have themes that are acceptable for children to see.
And isn't it clever when it works out that way?
Yeah.
Isn't it clever when they get around that sort of thing and then those things are talked about anyway, but they're subtle. With all of this, with it being more and more acceptable that everything is PG-13 and R, I think you lose a lot of subtlety.
There's a movie, I think it's called The Black Legion.
I said I was done, I'm sorry.
That there's a movie, I think it's called The Black Legion, that's a Humphrey Bogart movie, came out way back in the day during the production code. Now, most movies during the production code, you would be able to let a kid watch because there's not a lot of stuff in there that's too extreme. But, of course, some of their themes are completely and utterly intended for adults.
Oh, yeah.
And Black Legion would be one of them. I mean, that's really about how evil of an organization the KKK is. And it's a really interesting movie. I recommend it if anybody gets the chance to watch it. But it's one of those things that no kid would sit there and go, I want to go see that movie because it has social matters in it. So that didn't make any sense.
Not any kid you and I ever knew.
So, that kid's really mature for his age. Wow.
Oh, we better let him play Chainsaw, whatever it was.
Chain Solo.
I had, you know, that joke was on its way until I realized that I didn't really know where the train station was. Well, did you have any final thoughts? I know I asked that already, but I feel like we kind of, we kind of.
Do you have any final thoughts?
That's it, man. I've got it. Well, anyway, I thought that was that was fun, Vince. That was a good production. That was a good productive conversation. And if you have an opinion about this, I'm sure you do. Leave it in the comments below. Tell us what you think about the current MPAA rating system, and if there is a conversation you'd like us to have in the future, if there's a question you'd like to ask, feel free to leave that in the comments as well. I can't talk now. Like you said that one sentence that had a bunch of S's and H's in it, and now I can't talk either. It's like everything I say comes out like that.
Well, English is composed of lots and lots of S's.
Vince, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think so, Cap. But how do you get clowns to shave their legs?
Well, I'm not sure, but what I was thinking is, I think our viewers should join the Geeks United Club.
The Geeks United Club? That's a terrific idea. When they join, they get lots of stuff.
Do they really? Can you jog my memory?
Stuff like this handy-dandy manila envelope in which we ship all your stuff.
That's pretty cool, but it's not the coolest part. They also get this DVD that has 2 full hours of their favorite Geekvolution content. They get to pick what videos go on here, and they also get a custom episode of Geeks Not Nerds just from us to them.
That's pretty cool. They also get a Geeks United membership card on which they can put their name and check as to whether or not they will be a Logan Tier or a Doomsayer.
You know, I would check Logan Tier, but that would make me a fan of myself.
I think I'm gonna check Logan Tier because I like to be unpredictable.
Fair enough. They also get a random comic from the Comic Vault. Now, the Comic Vault is very vast and ominous, and that means that the chances of you getting this particular comic are not that great, but it could be anything. It might be this, but it might be all kinds of other comics, too.
We also have a much longer publication in the form of Captain Logan's novel, The Girl with 7 First Names. It is a comedic science fiction novel. Check it out.
They also get this letter from Doomsvent. I've read it. It's appalling.
He's hugely insulting. Oh, they get one more thing.
Oh, what's that, Vince?
They can request a rewind.
Or a Vince Versus.
Ooh.
Yeah, for us to review sometime during the next year or so. And you get all of that for $20, Vince.
$20? That's a lot of entertainment, folks.
Yeah, all you gotta do is go to wearegeeksnotnerds.com and click on the Geekvolution store, or you can just go to the link in the description of this video.
It's a great idea. We'll see you in your envelope.